Morning. Kumlen and Ablat Gemara. Today's daf is daf Kuf Aleph. We're getting closer to the end of the Masechta. In fact, I think the very end of next week we finish. So basically, the last thing we learned was that Shmuel came out and said that the Mishnah said that if the Korban Mincha or the Nesachim became Tameh, if you did not place it into a clay shard, in other words, it did not become Kedusha Zaguf, it did not become holy in its own right, you can redeem it. But once you place in the Keli, become Kedusha Zaguf, you cannot redeem it. And then the Mishnah said, but birds and wood and the Levoinah and the clay shards themselves, once they become Tameh, there's no pigeon for them. Says Shmuel, the Mishnah doesn't mean only when it became Tameh, even if it's Tahir, that there's no pigeon. Sorry. So Shmuel comes along and says, when the Mishnah starts out, the first part of the Mishnah, when the Mishnah starts out and says that only if it's Tameh you can be paid, don't learn the Mishnah literally, because even if it's Torah you can be paid. Why? The word is, if something is not Kedushas Haguf, it's not that holy, you can redeem it, and the money you use whatever for the base of English. But you can redeem it. We'll see more later, not everyone agrees with him. Says the Gemara now. So that's Shmuel's din. The chiddush is that something is not Kedusha Guf, you can redeem. So we're going to ask a question of Shmuel from the end of the Mishnah. We're about to Daf Kuf Aleph, about 12 lines on the top of the page. Moisiv Rab Handa bar Menachos. Rab Handa bar Menachos asks a question. It says in the end of our Mishnah, Ha'oif is the bird, Eitzim the wood, Valavoina and the Lavoina, the clay shadas. These four things, She Nitmu, if they became, or Mishnah Nitmu, once they became tummy, Ein Lehen pigeon. You cannot redeem them. Shalanem pigeon el behema. And now, a pigeon is only shaykh by behema balmum. We say, let that animal wander about, get a mum, and then you can redeem it. Our question is going to be that l'chayda, these are examples of kedusha damim. These are not really kedusha daguf, as we'll soon see. And yet, the Mishnah clearly says that wood and lavaina, even though it's kedusha daguf, it cannot be. You're redeeming it. You cannot redeem it. Bishleime oifes kedusha daguf. Bishleima oifes is kedusha daguf. Okay, I can understand maybe why you cannot redeem it. It's a carbon. Well, behema, and only thing that you can redeem is a behema. Behema you can redeem, fine. Eitzim lavaina wood, and lavaina and klei shada lifriku. They're not kedusha dami. They're not kedusha daguf. They themselves, and the Rabbeinu Yesher says, interesting. What's the definition? We'll get to it in a minute. Rabbeinu Yesher says, what's the gedder of kedusha daguf? If you can be brought for itself on its own. In other words, if you're brought as an ancillary to something else, then you're not really Kedushas Haguf, you're just a tag along, a drag along. If you yourself are brought up as a carbon, like a carbon, an animal, a bird, you bring him as a carbon, so that's Kedushas Haguf. And all of these are there to support something else. The Eitzim to support something else, Lavain supporting and Kleshaz something else, so they're not Kedushas Haguf. So l'chayda, lifriku, you should be able to redeem. Why does it just say that you cannot redeem it? Ella labishum the Torah ba'almein. There must be only one conclusion. Even though it's not kedushas haguf, it cannot be redeemed. And the word over here is that these ones here, even though they became, what's the svara taka? Why only an animal, not these? Because these are not really tamei. That even though they became tamei, they like to hide him. Why? Because the rule is, in order to become tamei, it has to be like food. Let's say. The eitzim ulavoina lav b'nei ashvuya oichlinu. That eitzim wood is not really food, and the lavoina is not really food, and therefore we're going to hatch it like this. That the reason why you can, the Mishnah says that these things cannot be redeemed is because l'chayda behemi can be redeemed. They cannot be redeemed is because they're not really tamei. They're like tire. And because they're like Torah, and a Torah you cannot redeem. Not like Shmuel said that the Torah, because it's only Kedusha Damim, you could redeem. No, the Mishnah says clearly, I don't care Kedusha Guf Kedusha Damim. If something is holy, you cannot redeem it. That's it. It's holy. But if it's Damim, you can. But so why these are Uisnam? Why are these exceptions? Because they're not really Tamei. Now why are they really Tamei? Because they're not really food. It's not. It's exactly. So it's not really oichel. It's not. Can be tumas oichlin.
The firewood.
So it's, yeah, but it's not exactly, and that's Kushaguf. These are not really food, and because it's not really food, so therefore Tumas Eichlin cannot be chal over here. Now, I'll tell you about the taste later. What this is what you meant. that the fact we learn from the word habasar that not only the basar itself, but anything which is there to support the basar, it becomes chashuv enough that's considered like food. And the eighty, when it comes to wood lamashal, it has to be mamish, the final stage. It's ready to go on the mizbeach. Come if you didn't really shave it, and smooth it out, lemiskasher, lemoinami come the kitchen, but sure lemiskasher, and the same thing over here. The whole man, it's not mamish. The last step before ready for the carbon, it's not food. So all of these are not really tummy; they're tired, and that's the only possible explanation why you cannot redeem it. Which means that even though it's only kedushas damim, if it's tar, you cannot redeem it. Tell me you can. And so why should be a difference between these other ones? Only because these other ones are not really tummy. Doesn't really explain the bird so much, but all the other ones it explains. So I'm like, no. I'll give you another spot altogether why you cannot redeem it. Really, kedushas damim could be redeemed. So why does Mishnah say these three things cannot be redeemed? You could redeem it because it's only Kedushas Damim. It's not really intrinsically Kodesh. The Beis HaMikdash, if they sell it, where are they going to find a replacement? These are rare things. To find Levina and even Klei Shaddis, I'm not sure why Klei Shaddis is Lashkich, but to find the right, appropriate Levina. No, it's Nisachim and Mincha, it's very easy to find. What's a big deal? Flour and oil. And wine. Why can't you find it? But these things are more specialized, and therefore it's not so easy. The Hanim says, okay, I understand. I guess whatever Levain is a rare thing. And Klei Shor is also the way they came to be exact measurements and all that. But Eitzim, what? What's the big deal? No, it's not so simple. Eitzim namik, even the Amamah we learned, call eight shenimtze by talas, any tree that's wormy, and that's why after two above, you can't do anymore. Puzzle legabe mizbeach is puzzle. It took a lot of time to find dry wood that did not have any moisture, didn't have any worms crawling around it. That's the reason why you cannot redeem it according to Shmuel. So really, a kedushas damim can be redeemed. Why does the Mishnah say that these things cannot be redeemed? Not because we treat them like the Torah and Torah can be redeemed. It's because why give up something if you already have it that's suitable? Why give it up? And then the big tircha is not the money. It's the tircha to find a replacement. So therefore, we have a special kind of
not tircha to find a buyer.
No, to find a replacement because these are hard to find.
And oifus?
Sorry.
And
oifus it doesn't fit into that scheme of things. For some reason, other oifus as well cannot be redeemed. Maybe I don't know. No, we say oifus is kedusha goof. No, oifus is different. They are intrinsically kodesh. It's the other ones that are not. They're only kedusha damim, right? Because they're not brought into anything on their own. I believe if Shmuel would have known about the following brayso, which I'm about to tell you about, he never would have said what he said. He would have changed his mind. What does it say in the brayso? Hamatfis. If somebody is toif, the din is that if you donate to the Beis Hamikdash, you're not allowed to donate to the Beis Hamikdash, bedekabai maintenance, an animal which is suitable for the mizbech. If it's suitable for the mizbech, you have to leave it for the mizbech. So what happened? You didn't listen. Hamatfis tmim lebedekabais. You donated a carbon which is flawless, but you said I want this to be better maintenance in the Beis Hamikdash. They can sell it whatever they want, but I don't want it to be for the mizbech. Ein poidin oisus. What you do is you redeem it. But you're not paid elul mizbech, and the money that you have it has to be used for the mizbech, and the animal should be sold to somebody who's going to use it on the mizbech, because the din is that any animal which is roll mizbech should be, if you makdash it, should be for the mizbech. You makdash better kabais, so the better guys will sell it, but they have to sell it to someone who will use this animal for the mizbech. This animal already has a kedusha, has to go to mizbech. Because you can't really redeem it. Klar, you can't redeem it. You, Shmuel, said that if something was only kedushas damim, you can redeem it. It's only if it's kedushas aguf. Here, this animal kedushas damim. The fact is, you're only makdash it for the maintenance of Beis Hamikdash, and yet it says clearly you cannot redeem it. And so the hekdesh has to sell it to somebody who uses a mizbech. Because it's tired. Tamei is one thing because you can't use it anymore. But if it's tired, it goes to the bech. Surely Shmuel would have changed his mind. Says Gemara nechtige tag. V'loi, he never would have changed his mind. You know why? Shmiele, he knew the brayse. V'loi hadabe, he did not change his mind. We just gave a whole new husband. We just said the reason, even though you could technically redeem, let's say, Kedushas Damim, sometimes certain objects, the Beis HaMikdash would never sell because it's very hard to find exactly the right thing, and they have it already. Why give it up and then start the search all over again? Use the same story for animals. It seems we know that in Australia, animals are very healthy, and therefore, glut is very common. In other countries, where animals are not so healthy, it's not so easy to find glut because there's so many problems of sikhs and the animals are not healthy. So for the Beis HaMikdash, it has to be flawless. It can be a balmum. It's not so easy to find animals that don't have any movement. So if the Beis HaMikdash has in it, or at least the Bedek Habayis, to have an animal that's flawless, use it for the Mizbech. Not because Shmuel is wrong. Even we just said before the rotten, if it's not shkiach, don't redeem it. Haganam, even shkiach mumin, the possible you find it so often. Mumin, even a afilu bedukin shemayin, even a cataract, which is something you can't even see, is considered mum. Nami possible. He referred to shkiach. Now the Gemara said, how many kabbalas did they bring? We don't know. They brought a lot of birds. Birds is easy. The Ketzim Mizbeach was birds.
Twice a day.
Yeah, that's a lot of kabbalas.
But a
lot of kabbalas is we keep them Mizbeach busy. Yeah, but how many? Ketzim Mizbeach was what a lot, but there were birds. Maybe that's why they brought birds, because animals were not that common. Rav Kahana, I disagree with Shmuel. He says even Kedusha Damim, if it's tired, you cannot redeem it. However, there's another version of Baishia, and the Gemara will come address it later. He said, I agree with Shmuel that even if it's tired, if it's Kedusha Damim, you can redeem it. Rabbi Lazar says, Kulan Tameyin Nivdin Tahayin Ein Nivdin. I agree with Rav Kahana that if it's tired, you cannot redeem it, even though it's only Kedusha Damim. Chutz. The only exception is Asidis. A person who's a sinner, let's say, and you bring a certain case, you bring a carbon oil of the Yedid, you made a shua, whatever, or Edis, you bring a carbon oil of the Yedid, it's commensurate to how rich you are. If you're rich, you bring an animal. If you're not so rich, you bring a bird. If you're less rich, you bring a flower offering. And that's the only exception where, according to Rashi and some of the Shainim, it's the only exception where we say that even if it's tired, I'll agree with Shmuel that you can redeem it. Why? Mechatosi is talking about a sheep. If you were rich at the time and you put aside $100, because that's what a sheep cost, by the time you were about to bring the sheep, the stock market crashed and you lost all your money. So it would cost only $10 to have a bird, or $20 to have a bird. So you take $20 from that, buy a bird, another $80 you can keep for yourself. If you bought a bird and you're so poor now you can't even afford a bird anymore, only flour would cost $5. Take $5 and that's called mechatasa. Use some of the money that you set aside. Al-chatasa means to add. So what are you doing? I was poor at the time, so I put aside $10 for a flower offering. Then I became rich by the time we'll have all this in more. Then I became rich by the time I had to bring the carbon. The din is you don't take the $10 and you add 90 to it. You redeem the flower offering, you sell it, or you redeem it, and then you buy a $100 thing. Here we see clearly you can redeem because it says al chatose. It's tar, but you can redeem it. That's a rational. Again, it's exactly the opposite.
But it's not a behemoth you're redeeming, it's flour.
Initially, remember the whole question I had before was from Mincha. It said the Mishnah start. Hamanach is not move, and Rabbi Shmuel came along and said that on Mincha, if it's toy, you can also redeem it. I heard Pigel b'Mincha le Rab Shimon. Rab Shimon lays down a rule. There's tumas nevela, which is a carcass of an animal. Your tummy is very strict. Then you have tumas oichlin. Tumah of food, which is a lot less strict. It can only metami other food. Can't be metami a person. Rab Shimon says that tumas oichlin can only happen if the food is mutar b'hana. If the food is not mutar b'hana, if it's also b'achila, you can give it to a guy. You can sell it, so it has still some value. But if it's also b'hana, what do you have? Nothing. So therefore, there's no tumas oichlin. It's not food. That's his definition of food, that you can give it to somebody. So according to Rab Shimon, he's a Shemaite heard. Pigel b'Mincha Rab Shimon, according to Rab Shimon, that says that if it's also b'hana, it does not become tumas oichlin. So if you mafagel it, so now nobody can eat from it, right? Because it's a pigel. Pigel means you had in mind the wrong time. Is eina matama tzurech. It's not matama tumas oichlin. That now we learned. What's the story here? We learned ha'arla. When you have arla, which is the first 3 years, you can't have any hana. Uklai hakedem, the wheat that grew with grapes, and it's also b'hana. Or shoyd hanisko. There was a gemar din. The Bezin ruled that this animal has to be stoned, and it wasn't stoned yet. And you went ahead because once the animal is stoned, it's tumas nevela. Before you stoned it, you went ahead and you shechted it. But these are all cases of Isa Bahana. Now, while an animal's alive is not considered it's not considered mukhshal to eat, because behema, bechayeh, becheskes Israel medis. Every animal that's alive is also either machlei Rashi Taisus and chulun, whether because in other places eva menachai or because there's a mitzvah of zavuach and it's ain't a zavuach. Whatever it is, an animal while it's alive is also to eat. The moment you shechted it, it's a chashay niskel, so it's also banal, so it's not food. Egla rufa, again egla rufa. Once you decapitated it, it's a nevela. So, but talking about it reached the nachaleson, so it became now asabano, and you shechted it for that few minutes before whatever it is, it becomes the egla rufa. It's considered. It's asabano. So the question is it considered tumas oichel or not? So we say, we'll see in a minute. We say, upetach hamoid, saying a petach hamoid. You petach hamoid, and Rashi in the Rabbein Yeshalon, you shechted it for the sake of avodah zorah. It's not yet an avela. Why is it not an avela yet? It's like it's mamash avela because it's talking about a case where the animal's still jumping around. And because the animal's still jumping around, it's a mefarchis. And because when does the animal become an avela? Once it stops jumping around. But while that 30 seconds or minute, whatever the animal's nerves is jumping around, it is only tumas oichli, not tumas nevela. They're all matama tumas oichli. All of these, because they hold, even though it's asabano, it's still food, and therefore even it's not nevela yet. So therefore, there's tumas oichli. Rashi has another pshat. Rashi says maybe in the whole Gemara here that it's still tumas, even though there's tumas nevela. At the same time, we don't have to say while I was jumping around something, but it's tumas eichlin as well. When do you have tumas eichlin and not tumas nevela? If it's half a kazayis. Half a kazayis is no tumas nevela. But if this half a kazayis of this petachama, whatever it is, joined another half a kazayis, well, not a kazayis, we need a beya, joined a food that's tameh and became a beya, it will be a tameh. So there is tumas eichlin even though there's no tumas nevela. Rabbi Shimon says, "Kol ne'emet tameh tumas eichlin." They're not tameh. You know why? Because it's asbana. However, Moed Reb Shimon Bas B'chalav. Bas B'chalav is different. Shemitame tumas oichel. Why is Bas B'chalav different? Asbana. He gives the reason is because it had a moment that before you cooked it together, you can soak meat and milk all day long and they're kosher, and yet it's only when you cook together that it becomes asa. So this had a shasa kosher, and therefore it's considered oichel. No, since it was a moment that was oichel, that tag remains with it. My time, it says, only food you can give to others, others to goyim. No, it's mutbana. You can't give it to goyim. Now let's go back to the pigel the mincha. So let me ask a question. You made a ruling by that if you mafagel by a korban mincha, it's now asabahano, and therefore Reb Shimon would hold that there's no tumas oichlin. So oichel she ata yochel hachil lachedimu. It's food that cannot be eaten by others. Cannot be eaten by others. Says the Gemara, so if the word is he cannot eat others, so why do you have to tell me why do you have to tell me if that's the whole word because you cannot give it to others and therefore it's not oichel? So why did Reb Shimon say about basar b'chalav? It had a time that it was kosher, it had already a tag of food. Say Reb Shimon holds that basar b'chalav mutar b'hana. So if Reb Shimon holds that basar b'chalav mutar b'hana, that's the reason why there is tumas oichel. What do you have to tell me before it became basar b'chalav? Even b'shas basar b'chalav is food. In the time when Reb Shimon basar b'chalav also b'chila or mutar b'hana, he holds his mutar b'hana. Shnei it says ki am kodesh ato l'Hashem lekecha. One part says that you're a holy nation. And we shouldn't eat treif. And then it says here, and that part says, so malahal also b'chil by treifa. If similar lashon, it says kodesh. Just like over there, also b'chil mutbana. I've kind of here also b'chil mutbana. So the kodesh comes to Shimon. What do you have to tell me? Ma'aseh that we used to be kosher. Just say right now it's mutbana. So he's giving me two reasons. You can give to other people. I'm not even going to have to tell you that. So surely it's food. Even though you cannot eat it, but even the gabi the yid, this used to be food before you cooked it together, and therefore it already had a tag of food, and that's why it's mekabel tumas eichli. I'm going to ask a question. Meisha ask a question. So you came along and say that by mincha if you're mefaglit, so it's also bahana, and because it's also bahana, therefore there's no tumas oichel. No, it's a question. It says, Rabbi Shimon says, yesh noisa shumetamid oichel. Sometimes there's some cases of noisa left over of a carbon, which is also bahana, and yet it's still metamid tumas oichlin. And there's noisa shumetamid oichel. There's noisa does not. Ketzad. What is the difference? When did we say what? When did we say this? The difference is as follows: Lon leaf nezika. Let's say the animal, you shecht it, and you cannot eat from a carbon until you spray the blood on the mizbech. But if you already left it overnight before you had a chance to spray on the mizbech, it never had a moment that it was food. It never had a moment that it was oichel shasa kosher. It says lon leaf zika. If there was lina before you sprayed it, ain't was oichlin. It never was food. Or zika, you sprayed it. Let's say the thing, and then afterwards there was lina. Afterwards it became nicer. So there was a time that it was food. Once it has a tag of food, then it's oichel, and it becomes it's metam tum oichlin. So our question is, that's right. That continues. Says, "Pigel, baby, kalim, ain't no tamas oichlin. Pigel is not metame tumas oichlin, right? Because it's also bahana. But pigel, the mincha. But if you're mefagel by mincha, it is metame tumas oichlin. So it's clearly here that by mincha it is metame. You just said before that by mincha, if you're mefagel, since you cannot eat it and you cannot have enough, it's not considered food. So it is. It says metame tumas oichlin. So it's like kasha. Depends. Remember the other vote we said. There was ever a moment that it was kosher. In if for a moment it was considered food, then it's oichel. If not. Now how's that work? Hey chidami, the law says, what do you mean mincha never has shasa kosher? It's flour. How can when it was instead of flour, it was kosher. The agdishinim mechuber. You makdish it while it was growing. So therefore, when was it flour? When was it wheat? Never. So it was already kodesh from the moment that it was oichel. It was already growing. Therefore, it was never able to be eaten. And you mafagel it before you had a chance to make it edible, make it eatable, edible to kohenim. So the Gemara, v'lifrikinu. You said before, according to Shmuel, that if it's tar, so you could go ahead. So why? Because you didn't put it inside a clay sharis yet, and we know by mincha when does it become holy? When you put it in the clay sharis. While it's growing, it's only good damim. So why can't you just redeem it? So it had a shasa kosher. According to that lashon, to main nivdin toidin, ain't nivdin. He doesn't disagree with Shmuel. That it makes sense. He holds up what? That if it's only, even though it's Kedusha Damim, you cannot redeem it. Okay. That's why he says it never had a Shasa Kosher in that case. And that's why he says that, there's no Tumas Eichli. El Hachli Shadam, I feel turning that Nivdin, he holds like Shmuel. The other Lashon we had, Rabbi Yishai says he holds like Shmuel that you couldn't redeem it. Lifrikinu. Says he want to hash to Milaparik. But the fact is, you didn't redeem it. You should have, but he didn't. And therefore never had a shasa kosher. So what are you talking about? Rabbi Shimon holds that if it didn't, if it had a potential to do it, it's as if it happened. The kivani by Paraglay Shamil, Rabbi Shimon holds that if it had the ability to be redeemed, it's as if it's redeemed. Where do we say that? The Tanya of Shimon says the paraduma not have any whatsoever. But yet, he says there is tumas oichlin by paraduma. How can it be? It's asabano. And Rabbi Shimon holds also about there's no food. It had a shasa kosher. When did it have a shasa? Oh, when? Yeah, but while it's alive, you cannot. Every animal is considered also while it was alive. So where's the shasa kosher? You know what shasa kosher was? That he says that if you can redeem it while it's sitting on the mizbech. No, but even though you shechted it properly, Kozman, you didn't go the next stages and burn the ash and all that, it's considered, what do you call it? That it's ro la'achila. Yeah, so what do you see from here? That even though you didn't redeem it. Did you redeem the paradum? You didn't. You could redeem it if it's sitting on the marocha before you burn the ashes, but you didn't. So yet Reb Shimon holds the fact that you could have is good enough. So it goes back to our question. Since you could have redeemed the mincha, so it should be considered food. So the Gemara, so how can you ever have a case that there's no shasa kosher by mincha? You're saying that sometimes the mincha does not have a shasa kosher and it's not food. When? Oh, so what are you comparing to paraduma? Paraduma, a medis live they see. By paraduma, actually, sometimes there's a mitzvah to redeem it. If you found another paraduma, even though we learned about how rare it was in Kedushin, but if you found another paraduma, go ahead. and redeem it. So because the mitzvah to redeem it, so therefore we say it's as if you redeemed it. Elahani menach and mitzvah doison. Is it such a mitzvah that you may say that mincha, go ahead and redeem it? Not at all. So therefore, the Shimon says it's not a potential. But what are you talking about? The halon lifnei zika. We said in the Mishnah, if it was lina before you actually sprayed the blood, it never had a shasa kosher, and therefore we say it's not food. Oh, but since you could have sprayed it before it became lina, and there's a mitzvah to spray the blood. No, you said there's a mitzvah as if it happened. So why don't we say there was a shasa kosher even though the poly didn't spray it? The mitzvah Uktani said the aim was not the food. If why not say as if it happened? There was no time. Who's shechted 1 minute before shkiz. So there's no time to spray it. So therefore, that's why there's no shasa kosher, because there was no time. No, it was really, we say that where there's a mitzvah, you could have done it, it's as if it happened. But over here, he couldn't have done it because it's right before shkia. Talking about it says, yes, what happened was time taka. It would be time even though there was a lina before your zika. Even though you didn't do zika the following day, and there was lina, the fact that you could have sprayed it and there's a mitzvah spray is good enough. So at the tunnel, why does the Braisa make a difference? Makes it when the lina happened. Before the zika, then there was no shasa kosher. After the zika shasa kosher, and therefore it was food already. Make a bigger chiddush. Say even before zrika, depends. If you did it a minute before shkia, you did it an hour before shkia. When do we say shalah shasa kosher and there's not considered food? There's no tumas oichlin. B'yayim shalah shus b'yayim. You did it a minute before shkia, no time. Okay, if you, even though it happened before the zrika, if there was an hour to go, then mitam tumas oichlin. Bigger chiddush. I said, you're right. Could have said that. This is exactly what the Braisa means to say. That lon played sheyira l'zrika. If there was lina before, not that before the zrika, if there was lina before there was row to zrika, then in other words, you never had a chance to zoyd it because of the minimum of shkia. But not that you actually sprayed it. If you did it an hour before, so you had plenty of time to spray, even though you didn't spray, it's as if you sprayed already. It's considered oichel and it's matamei. Matamei is oichel. It says in the Braisa of Yimafagel, Ben Kochik, Kalam, Mitzul. Now look over there, Mitzul Mizike. If you didn't make it pigel, let's say before you did pigel. We right now assuming you did pigel during the zikah. Before you did the actual zikah, you had a mitzvah to be zodik. So let's imagine you did it correctly. So consider it food. Be by zodik. Uktani, it says they never time if you did pigel, it says there's no tumor zoichlin. But before you made it pigel, you had a mitzvah to spray it, and at that moment the spraying would have been right. So say it's considered food. My love, the pigel bezika. Which stage did you do? Remember, there's different stages you can do pigel. The zika. When I said no, the pigel b'shchita. It's talking about you mefagel the first moment while the animal's alive. It's awesome. The moment you shechted, you already had in mind the wrong thoughts. So you mefagel it. They've never had a shasa kosher. So what are you telling me? I have a pigel bezrika. What would it then be? We talk mefagel the next stage by zrika. It would have been food. Adatoni. Why does it say pigel b'mincha? So why do you make a difference? Pigel b'mincha metamet tumas. You tell me that by mincha, if you made pigel, it's considered food as metamet tumas. Live like bedida. Why don't you make a difference in the animal itself? Depends when the pigel took place. When do we say that by the animals also? No, there's no shasa kosher if you mefagel at the stage of shchita. Why jump to mincha if you want to give an example where there's still food? Pigel, give an example within the animal itself. If you mefagel at the time of zika, it's considered food because before you mefagel it, you had a mitzvah to sprinkle as if you sprinkled it correctly. So the Gemara, pigel b'mincha itzfle. The chiddush is by mincha. Why? The afagav the pigel b'kmitza by mincha. Even if you mefagel from the very first moment. Remember, kmitza by mincha when you scoop out the thing is no different than shchita by an animal. It's the same thing. Here you shecht, and here you mefagel. The koim is b'mincha k'shchita. You learned before. I feel hach even though and by an animal, if you mefagel at the first stage by shechting, we say that's it. There's no food here. It's not food. And therefore it's not no tumas oichel. But by a mincha, even though you mefagel the very first stage of kmitza, I feel hachi metamet tumas oichel. Is metame why? Before you made it into mincha when it was flour, by an animal while the animal's alive, you can't do anything with it. But by a mincha while it was a stage of flour, you could have eaten it. So it's considered oichel, and that's the chiddush here. See you tomorrow, mitzvah.